In 1904, the United States began construction of the Panama Canal, a shortcut between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans that today moves 6% of the world's maritime trade. The canal, an engineering marvel, was a source of pride for the United States. But in Panama, perpetual U.S. control of the canal and surrounding territory known as the Panama Canal Zone built resentment over time.
Panamanians tried through the years to change the relationship, a relationship that obviously was very unfair to Panama.
In the early 1970s, Panama's leader, General Omar Torrijos, made the turnover of the canal the centerpiece of his international agenda. He framed the U.S. presence in Panama, including military bases, as a permanent violation of Panamanian sovereignty and dignity. His arguments won support throughout Latin America and elsewhere in the world.
So Torrijos ran a very successful global campaign, persuading the United Nations, many countries around Latin America, that the canal under U.S. ownership was a legacy of colonialism, of an old imperial era, and that it was time to move beyond that.
Nevertheless, the prospects for a negotiated solution seemed dim until the 1976 election of Jimmy Carter.
In 1977, when he took office, I remember vividly, as my father was appointed ambassador to Washington, I went with him to present the diplomatic credentials to President Carter. So my father went in and he said, "Mr. President, I'm sorry I'm going to break the protocol in this because I'm not a diplomat, I'm a businessman. But we need to talk about the Panama Canal." And right away he said, "I'm not a diplomat either, and let's start working right now."
Not everyone was as open to the idea of handing over strategic infrastructure and overseas territory to the government of a small Central American country. In the 1976 Republican Party presidential primaries, Ronald Reagan had campaigned energetically against negotiations with Panama. Public opinion was on the side of Carter's critics. But Panama's persistent diplomacy kept the issue on the White House agenda, and Carter appeared willing to pay the political costs.
The negotiation of the Panama Canal Treaties was really a masterclass in asymmetric diplomacy.
The U.S. Senate finally ratifies it, but by one vote. And there were many people who were opposed to that, particularly in the Republican Party. And they kept saying, how can we give this, enormous wonder that we've created and so on to this small country?
President Carter signed the canal treaties in 1977, but the canal turnover did not take place during his presidency or during Torrijos' lifetime.
But the treaties do more than that. They mark the commitment of the United States to the belief that fairness and not force should lie at the heart of our dealings with the nations of the world.
The agreement required a decades-long transition. Reagan defeated Carter in the 1980 election, and Torrijos died in a plane crash the following year. However, on December 31st, 1999, former President Carter traveled to Panama to oversee the historic handover ceremony. It ended 96 years of American control, removing a major source of tension between the United States and Panama that had complicated the U.S. image throughout Latin America.
Carter, of all things, is a man of principle.
President Carter in Panama is definitely considered a hero.
As always, President Carter did the right thing. And we see in his post-presidency that he has continued for many decades to try to do the right thing worldwide.